Hello, everyone. Hello, and welcome to IPSI's Forum on Africa, Israel, and Black America. I'm your host, Joshua Washington, Executive Director of the Institute for Black Solidarity with Israel. I will be joined very soon by my lovely co-host. You all had her as your host last week, Olga Washington, who is the head of our Speakers Bureau and our board member. That song you heard, once again, is called The First 7 Miles, written by Randy Sandoli. You can find that song and the rest of the album entitled Simcha on all streaming platforms. So check it out, download it. Beautiful music, and we're happy to have Randy on our team. You may even see him performing live very soon, as he has some things that are starting to build up now, which is amazing. Yes. So now, just a few announcements before we get into our program for today. First of all, make sure you visit our website, ibsi.org. We are on Substack, Africa Israel Weekly, or ibsi.substack.com. Check out our articles. We have podcasts now. We have one that just came out last week with our good friend, Rabbi Matt Abelson. And we have one coming out next week with another really great friend of ours, Brandy Shufutinsky, Dr. Brandy Shufutinsky. And we have others coming out as well. So we're excited about that. My family and I will be in South Africa in a few days, and we'll also have some episodes straight from the motherland as a podcast episode for some of our partners out there as well. So don't miss it. Don't miss it. Tag your friends, tag your neighbors, tag people. We are live everywhere. We are on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, or X, I should say. What else? YouTube, LinkedIn. We're on all the platforms right now. So if you're watching, please tag your friends and feel free to post questions in the comment section or comments as we go along. We love to engage as we do these live forums every week. Become a legacy builder. Become a legacy builder of IPSI. If you are not a legacy builder, go to ibsi.org/donate, and you can either give a one-time donation, or you can become a legacy builder, which is someone who gives a monthly amount to IPSI. I always encourage those to give at least $18 a month. If you can give more, please give much more. But those donations, especially those regular, consistent donations, really do help us to do the things that we are supposed to be doing and to carry out our mission in Africa, Israel, Black, and Jewish solidarity. So please become a legacy builder. All right, a couple other quick announcements. So I think we said this before, but our Miami event was postponed. You can go to ibsi.org/events and you can see when the new date is. It is still happening. I will still be in Miami with the wonderful Sarah Akiba. We'll be having a very, very lively and very, very much needed conversation. It's a podcast, but it's live. So, we'll have a live audience. You can definitely be one of those audience members. Just register. It's a free event, but when you go to register, you can see that there's an option for you to donate to IPSI as well. So even if you can't make it, you can also donate by clicking on one of our events and just giving a donation through there. Like I said, our events we do, we try to make sure as best as we can that they're curated specifically for what is needed, the message that is needed. And there's a lot of work that goes into it. Speaking of that, we just got back from Chicago yesterday. Yesterday, we were in Chicago. We had an amazing time. I think we have a video, just a little highlight reel from our time in Chicago, both with Stand With Us and with Pastor Corey Brooks, New Beginnings Church, and his organization, Project Hood. So I think let's go ahead and maybe show those. I want to say, let's go ahead and show them back to back if we can. Zion calls to us, the city of our King. Take my life. So even though we were there for a very short time, I think it was less than 2 days. It was a very full visit. As you saw, we were at BJBE, the synagogue there in Deerfield. That morning, we were in the south side of Chicago on O Block, visiting Pastor Corey's church right across the street from that facility that's being built. He's been on a fundraising campaign for quite some time now. Has raised over $20 million. It still has a ways to go. This facility I mean, and we'll talk about this later on in the program. But Pastor Corey Brooks is one of our partners. He's doing the real work in Chicago, in the most what's known to be the most dangerous block in Chicago. What they call O Block. He calls it Opportunity Block. He has done such incredible work even before this facility. He's not a fly by night community organizer. He's been doing this for a while, and this facility now is really a reflection of the expansion that he has seen as a leader working with especially these young men in Chicago. So if you want to know more, go to projecthood.org and donate to their cause, help them to finish this facility. He's received all kinds of pushback from the city from this, a lot of red tape, a lot of bureaucracy, and things has slowed down a little bit over the past few months, but he is more determined than ever before. And with your help, he can really make this thing. Him and his whole entire staff and his team can really make this thing what it needs to be for the South Side of Chicago. So please, go there now, donate, and let's continue to support this very righteous man doing this very righteous work. All right, so we had a great time, like I said, in Chicago. Amazing event that evening at BJBE. Lots of great music. It was a concert. Our great friend Peggy Shapiro, she's with Stand With Us, another force to be reckoned with, another person who does the real work. We had a conversation. We were planning the event, actually. She and I started talking and planning the event just before October 7th. And as you can see, Peggy is the one that's to the left of me. And there's our CEO, my father, on the far left, and then Maria, our administrator, and she was also one of the singers that evening. You have Leah all the way on the far right, our graphics design artist, and one of our other singers for that evening as well. You have Peggy, and you have her husband. You have my wife Olga, and yeah, we started talking about this event. I think back in maybe August or July even of 2023, and it was supposed to be a slightly different event, still music centered, which this event was, but obviously, as we all know, for those of you who are in Israel or who have been following all this stuff, everything changed on October 7th, and so reached out to Peggy. We talked, and she had a different idea, and I said, let's do it. So it was called Interfaith Voices for Israel, and it was a concert. We had a couple of speakers. Our CEO was one speaker. Our speakers bureau chief was another. We had a rabbi from a different synagogue to speak, and it was mainly and another cancer. But after that, it was just music. It was a very healing. It was a full night. We got to see some of our other partners. Shout out to Pastor Melva Henderson, who I've met for the first time in person last night. I've seen her on Clubhouse quite a bit, her face on Clubhouse, on her profile and all that stuff. And when I saw her, I said, "Do I know you from somewhere?" She said, "Yeah, I'm Pastor Melva." I was like, "Oh, wow." So we got to see some of our other partners there. And it was definitely a beautiful night for that. I see you, Pastor Matrilla Hall. Good evening to you as well. Thanks for coming in, you guys. All right, so let's get into some of these things that we're going to talk about tonight. The first thing that I want to turn your attention to, and it's a beautiful thing that's happening. It's funny, a lot of you have been sharing it with me, actually, saying, "Have you heard about this?" So yes, we have heard about it because IPSI is actually one of the partners in this initiative. But as some of you have seen already, there's this group called the African Jewish Alliance. And they launched their campaign in Harvard Square. This is a campaign that's focusing on calling attention to the suffering of millions of Black Africans in different parts of Africa: Sudan, Mauritania, Nigeria, Libya, Algeria. and others, where slavery is taking place. And this slave trade has been happening for a very long time, for centuries. Actually, it hasn't really stopped since the 7th century, when Arabs started trading Africans and other groups as well, including Europeans and things like that. But on the continent of Africa, it has not stopped. And this is a group initiative that is IPSI has been partnering with, along with our very dear friend, again, another person who does the real work, Charles Jacobs, um, and other partners of ours. So it's something, it's new. I mean, the fight isn't new, and even everyone involved in this, they've been doing this for a long, long time. So it's not new for any of them, for Charles, for any of us, nothing like that. But what I mean is this this specific release of this movement, this particular movement is new. Lots is going to come out of it. We're already getting emails from people. How do I donate? How can I help? How can I support? Our good friend Rabbi Matt Abelson, again, another real worker. He's an alumni from Harvard. He was talking to his friends, his fellow alumni, about how they can actually help and support this. So no, it's something that is very close to IPSI, even though it's not directly Israel advocacy. We are about a strong Africa-Israel relationship. And ladies and gentlemen, you can't have a strong Africa-Israel relationship if Africa is burning. Also, as members of the African diaspora, this is something that is very close to us as well. As you know, my wife is a Black South African. And even before we met, my father instilled in us as kids an awareness of and a love for Africa. And we would learn different things growing up. And but even more so, there's a connection that's there. And I was talking to my wife earlier, maybe I think it was either today or yesterday. It was yesterday, right after the Chicago event. We were sitting around a table at a reception and talking with a few people who brought up the African Jewish Alliance, and they said that have you guys heard of this? We said yes, no, we're a part of it, and we're really excited about it. And I told my wife, I said, whenever I even talk about it, whenever we have meetings, right, we have Zoom meetings or whatever, or in-person meetings with these partners, with Charles Jacobs, with some of his partners who are ex-slaves from Nigeria, who are ex-slaves from Sudan, and also my wife present, me, my father, and other Black Americans. There's such a untapped power that, like, we just touch on whenever we meet. It really can't be quantified, but I always feel like almost like crying. And a couple of times we've had these meetings, my wife has actually been brought to tears just from talking and planning this stuff. So I remember we had one meeting with Charles, and a couple of his Nigerian partners, and we were just introducing ourselves. Hi, my name is, Francis, and Hi, my name is, and by the time we got to Olga, to my wife, she introduced herself, and then she just began to cry. She was just saying, this is the humanitarian crisis of our day. This really is, in a world now that we live in, where everyone virtue signals, everything is threat level a million, everything is red alert, red alert. This is the issue. And I remember this again. Dr. Bob Woodson, Robert Woodson Center. Look him up, support the organization. Another man who is doing the real work. This man has been doing this work for decades. He's in his 80s now. He said, I remember this, I'll never forget this. I had the immense honor of sitting across from him at a lunch. We were at an event, and at the Douglas Leadership Institute. And it was me, and sitting next to me was my father, and sitting next to him was Dr. Bob Woodson. And Dr. Bob Woodson, my dad was sharing with him, I see Olga. Go ahead and bring Olga on too, as I'm sharing the story. So I wanted to just hop in this conversation here. Hello, Olga. How are you?
Good evening. How are you?
Doing very well. Thank you for joining us. Kids are in bed, I'm assuming.
They are. Let's hope that they stay in bed.
Yeah,
They're
let's
very
see.
excited.
Um, yes, they're very excited to go home to South Africa, which seems to be a theme right now in this moment. So, but yes, I was sitting just across from Dr. Bob Woodson, and he and my dad were talking, and Dr. Bob Woodson was just dropping knowledge just casually. I mean, it was just this, like, just to sit at the feet of this man and hear him just talk off the cuff. I was like taking notes, like, oh my gosh. And and he was asking our CEO about IPSI, and he was sharing with him more about what we do, the Black and Jewish relations, Africa-Israel relations, and then we even touched on the slavery piece. We touched on, and then Dr. Bob Woodson even touched on his heart. If he wasn't doing all the stuff he's already doing, he said he would gladly help fund a project that dealt with kids who age out of group homes, because usually what happens when they age out of group homes, which for those who don't know, group homes are my gramps used to run the group homes for decades. They are homes for boys who are, who have a history with the law, right? They've been in juvenile hall, all this stuff, and these things are to help reintegrate them into society by giving them a structure, giving them particularly male figures who are there in that house, who females as well. My father was a part of my grandpa's group home for a long time, helping him with the kids and all that stuff. As a leader, I mean, as a staff worker, and it's a really amazing thing. But one of the things that Dr. Bob Woodson said was that these kids, a lot of them, when they age out, a big percentage of them wind up returning to the life they lived before the group home, and then they wind up being in prison or killed. And so his thing was, there has to be a program that continues to help them after they age out, to integrate them into the workplace and all that stuff. And he was sharing that, and he said, yeah, if someone, he's like, I can't do it, I'm doing too many things, but if someone could do it, I'll gladly fund it. And he said, you know what? And he said, I could see Black and Jewish people doing this together. He said, I think the best way for two groups to come together is to identify a third party in need and then help them. He said, that's real solidarity. That's way better than just sitting around and singing Kumbaya, is what he said. And I was like, wow. He said, that's how you actually bring someone together. You guys come together. You don't commiserate on the mutual suffering, and we've seen that before. Oh, we both have slavery in the Holocaust. Yeah, he said, no, absolutely. That those things are tragic. He said, but the whole point is that we've overcome, and now how can we move the needle forward? That doesn't necessarily put us at the center of it, right? The whole Black and Jewish thing doesn't have to be for the sake of Black and Jewishness. No, it's how can we actually push society forward in a way that helps. And I believe that combating slavery on the African continent is one of the biggest major ways to actually move the needle forward globally. And that the Black and Jewish coming together is a spiritual synergy that's there, but it's there. I'm sorry, and I'm going to preach for a second. I'm going to give it to you, Olga. Isaiah said, is it 61? The Spirit of the Lord is upon me, for he's anointed me to, and that was I remember my father preached that he has anointed me to preach the good news to the poor, to comfort those who mourn in Zion, to, right? It wasn't just that there was an anointing, but the anointing was to do something. And so, yes, most people can identify that there is this synergy. There's this spiritual explosion that happens when two of these groups, Black Americans and Jewish Americans, when Solomon and Makeda come together, right? We can see that, but it's not just for the purpose of marveling at how cool it is that we've come together. That means that there's something that we're supposed to be doing that might not involve us, that might not actually put us at the center. It might actually have someone else at the center, like these African slaves who are crying out and nobody's helping them. Go ahead, Olga. Sorry.
No, I came in as you were speaking. I'm enjoying what you're saying. Got nothing more to add.
So, we were talking about that. We were talking to people who are doing the real work. But I was just letting everyone know about. So that's the African Jewish Alliance, everyone. So please, like I said, it's in its very nascent state as far as the organization is concerned. But these people, even on their own, have been doing a ton of work. Go to the website, join the mailing list, see how you can help. There's lots of things that we'll be doing throughout the year. In fact, we're still in the planning stages of this. But in April, on the 21st is what we're shooting for, is we're doing a special just before Passover starts. We're doing a special Passover event where we're going to have one of the ex-slaves come where we live, just outside of Charlotte here, but we'll also we'll make sure to record it and everything. And to talk about how, yes, we come to celebrate freedom from liberation from slavery, liberation from Pharaoh, but there are still people now in Africa who are enslaved. And so we're going to have someone come. I don't want to say his name yet because we're still working out the logistics, but I'm hoping that this particular person can come and share with us for that. So, but we'll be doing lots more than that as well. So please follow them for more information. All right, everyone. Okay. Now, I'm going to skip for a second because I want to talk to you about this, please, Olga. And that is, excuse me, that is doing the real work. Okay. What does it mean to do the real work? Um, you last week were talking, actually, I think maybe for 2 weeks in a row, you had brought up some things that were said and done by Candace Owens. Um, and that was our focus for a little bit, the stuff she was saying and how dishonest she's continuing to be, because she hasn't stopped. And how it's, for some people she's sold out, for some people she was always dishonest, or whatever the case may be. And so unfortunately there are a lot of people like her who do what they do for reasons other than what they're supposed to be doing them for. And so when you do that, your compass is off, and you are going to venture off into some weird kind of mumbo jumbo what she was doing. But I want to focus now on people who identify the problem and do the real work that's on the ground. And so I want to ask you, for you, even personally, who would you point to personally? Like, who is that person or persons for you that you would consider an unsung hero, someone who does the work, but maybe not necessarily is out there with a million followers and doing their thing like we might see all over the place.
If I may, I think it's important that we first define what doing the real work means. Because some people, to your point, if you were talking about Candace Owens, think that Candace Owens is doing what she's supposed to be doing. We have a lot of social justice warrior who behind the keyboards are, right? They think that they're doing the work that needs to be done. We have a lot of people that will just talk and talk and talk and talk and talk and organize things. So they're active and they're putting things together, and they think that they're doing the real work. So could we unpack that for a little bit? And I'll throw the question back at you because I have some thoughts as to what doing the real work means. Let's hear you first, and then I'll respond as well, and then share my
Sure.
person.
So so for me, I'm going to start with what not doing the real work is, and I'll pivot.
Mhm,
Okay. So I was just in the Bay Area last week. I was in San Francisco and Oakland. We
mhm,
had some IPSY events, and then I had some music stuff I was doing. And Oakland's been a topic at one of the main topics for IPSY for a little bit, but not just Oakland, right? Chicago, Detroit. We've been looking at places, especially like Oakland, where they defunded the police, where Black Lives Matter has really been allowed to flourish at the expense of the Black community, where local leadership has ignored its Black constituents. Um, Oakland specifically, we talked about it, how they the city council in Oakland wouldn't even let the NAACP chapter in Oakland come into their building to meet. They had hearings on Sunday mornings, so like most Black people will be at church, they can't come, and it just largely ignoring them. A year ago now, the NAACP chapter in Oakland wrote an open letter calling for a state of emergency, and they were met with backlash for it. These are people who live in Oakland who are saying it's terrible. And I, just having left there again, I go to Oakland probably once every 2 months. It gets progressively worse every 2 months. The homelessness, the filth. I mean, it's terrible. And
mhm,
but what does the Oakland City Council focus on? They focus on Israel. They had a whole hearing with hundreds of people in the room where they talked about Israel for the next hour, for hours and hours and hours. So, but in Oakland, San Francisco, one of the things that is just, it's been abysmal, but it's just the truth. It's an inconvenient truth, is that the homeless issue has become such an industry. People now call it the homeless industrial complex, where you have these people, these leaders, like when Gavin Newsom was mayor of San Francisco. This is a prime example. He promised that he would clean up homelessness and da 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 da. And not only did nothing change, what happens is that the homelessness continues to grow.
mhm,
And so the federal and state funding that these programs get increases every year,
mhm,
while nothing really changes, while everything gets worse. And they come to the
mhm,
federal government next year and say, we need more funding, we need more funding, we need more
mhm,
funding. And
mhm,
so now people have been trying for years to audit these programs, and they've
mhm,
been blocked because they're saying, okay, if your sole job as a program is to reduce homelessness and it's increased and you're getting more money and
mhm,
it hasn't changed, something's not really
Yeah.
adding up.
The math is not mathing.
The math isn't mathing, right? Obviously, the tactics that you're using aren't working. At the very least, let's not even assume you're evil. Let's just say that you just have a strategy that you think is going to work and it's not working. Okay, it like even in a more mild, like benign, let's just see how we can improve what you're doing, right? Let's hire a consultant to check you guys out and say, okay, and tweak this, do that. No. So that's been going on. Homelessness is rampant. It's needles, especially in San Francisco, needles everywhere. There are whole entire block, like long blocks where it's just tents. It smells, it's gross, all that kind of stuff, and it's dangerous. I didn't feel safe walking at night in Oakland as a 6'3", 258-pound black man. I was like, if I don't feel fully safe right now, I don't understand how people and they don't. The people who live there don't feel safe. So in this sense, when with these quote unquote homeless advocates, what they're doing is they're doing the fake work. They're doing the work. They're
Mhm,
doing the thing that gets them paid, that can send their kids to college, put them
mhm,
through college, and pay their bills. And they
mhm,
hire their friends, they hire their family members, their cousins. Hey, come and sit in this office, and you get
mhm,
$130,000 a year to just kind of mess around. And next
mhm,
year you'll get a raise. So what
mhm,
incentive do you have to end homelessness if you know that ending homelessness means that you don't have a job?
mhm,
So to me, that's not doing the real work. Doing
mhm,
the real work would be, in this example, would be someone to say, okay, let's look at where the problems are coming from. Okay, so you have this percentage of homeless people who have degrees in college, but somehow,
mhm,
okay, how can we fix that for them? Okay, let's
mhm,
attack that. Okay, now we have a
mhm,
percentage of people who, they got laid off their jobs. Okay, we have to have something for them to help them keep their houses a little bit longer, right? So now we're attacking these things. So then the next year it should be that, okay, we've reduced it by 33%. There's still a lot, but look at what we've done here. I mean, any nonprofit has to do that. Look at our impact. Look at our deliverables. So that's why we need. What happens is, oh, it's worse than ever, but it's an uphill battle, and it's just we need $25 million. Now we need $1 billion. That to me. So for me, doing the real work is when like we talked about Pastor Corey Brooks, Project Hood. He's been working in the most dangerous part of Chicago for a couple of decades now, and he is you can see the results from what he's doing. He's not just talking about
mhm,
it. There are men now who were teenagers then who are in their 30s and 40s and 50s now who can say, no, Pastor Corey Brooks is the one who helped change the direction of my life. And
mhm,
now I contribute to my community in this major way. You can look at that and say, see, that's what
mhm.
he's doing. So that's the real work. I hope that answered the question for you, Oli.
Yeah. So for me, fully agree with everything that you said. And there's two broad categories that I put doing the real work under. And the first one is you're effectively working towards putting yourself out of business. If you are saying, to your point about ending homelessness, and there's an example in the Israel space that's hot in the news now that is a classic example of not doing the work. But if you're saying that your goal is to end homelessness, then you will put as an objective yourself not needing to do that anymore. So effectively, you're saying, okay, and in 5 years, I don't want to be doing this anymore. There's no need for me to be doing this. I can pivot, I can evolve the nature of what I'm doing. But putting homelessness or putting people rather off the street is not something that I want to continue to doing. So you're courageous enough to be able to do that. You're not interested in the money to stay in that because then you're actually a liar. And then the second broad category for me actually comes from a New Testament scripture, and I'm paraphrasing it, where the Apostle Paul says that I don't just run a race as if I'm beating the air. He's like, no, it's like there's a purpose for why I'm in this race, and I'm in this race to finish the race. And more so for people like you and I know that's a fact. We're in this race to win. We're in this race to properly accomplish what's there.
Absolutely.
So if you're not in this race to actually effectively end or do or accomplish what you say that you're supposed to do, even if I may say, and I appreciate the fact that you raise nonprofits, there's some nonprofits that are showing impact, but it's like, okay, they're just touching this, but they're no closer to their end goal, right? Because that's how they're able to stay in the business that they've been in for so long. And so the United Nations, linking it also in relation to what you're talking about, the Africa Jewish Alliance or African Jewish Alliance, I beg your pardon, UNRWA, right? UNRWA has been in the business, my good gracious, since even before the 1960s.
Mhm.
And the number of quote unquote Palestinian refugees has not declined. Whereas they say that it is their business to reduce the number of Palestinian refugees, to bring an end to Palestinian refugee status. But meanwhile, it is on the up and up and up and up and up. It's an absolute farce. They've got different rules for the other UN body that's responsible for refugees. And why is this important? And it's important because one, it's a farce, and two, it hurts the real refugees that are out there, including, and we've spoken to this as EPSI for several years now. In fact, I believe that we've even written articles, including the real refugees that need assistance, right? Because UNRWA is a scapegoat for the refugees, including refugees from the African continent. Um, so, on that vein, somebody who's doing the work, Dr. Charles Jacobs. And I'm not sure how much you spoke about him when you were talking about the New Alliance.
No, go ahead.
He is an example for me as to someone who, from a slavery perspective, he isn't just making noise about it. He isn't just for a short season, hashtag this, hashtag the other, social justice warrior behind the scenes. Like, he is an actual abolitionist. What's the word? I'm getting tongue twisted.
Abolitionists. Yes, ma'am.
Abolitionist. There we go. Thank you, sir. He's actually a modern day abolitionist, right? He's in the business of saving slaves, and he's in the business of bringing awareness as to how other people can save slaves as well. I'm not going to say that I was embarrassed about it, but I'm grateful for the opportunity to learn that since I've met him, I've had the opportunity to directly be involved in saving slaves from my very own continent.
Mm-hmm.
Here I
Mm-hmm.
am, a child of the African continent who was vaguely aware of the fact that, yes, I knew that there was this transatlantic slave happening many, many years ago. But today, in today's real
Mm-hmm.
world, that there are people who look like me, my brothers and my sisters that are in slavery today. And so the opportunity to learn, the opportunity to see that it's being done, the opportunity to be able to put my hands to the plow, our
Mm-hmm.
hands to the plow, to be able to lock hands with other people who are putting their hands to the plow to actually do that. And then really also to start a campaign and to start an initiative that will, God willing, help to bring justice to, for what's very close to my heart is the young girls that underneath Bring Back Our Girls were forgotten. It was this fad that went around around the world for maybe several months. Over 270 young ladies kidnapped. People don't know that there is 90 of them, over 90 of them that are still missing. Right. And it's just like, okay, so are we about this or are we about not? Are we about just the clicks and the likes? And whilst the emotions, everybody's happy, we're focused and we're on it. That's not really doing the work. That's doing the work like you're surfing, you ride the wave, and for as long as the wave is up there, for as long as you're getting media attention, then you'll do it. But when it's silent and when it's quiet and when the money's not there, when the people are laughing at you and the people are not respecting you and the people think that you're a little bit on the cuckoo side, you are
Mm-hmm.
determined because you understand that there is a task to be done and there's a moral grounding in
Yep.
that.
Yep.
And so I want to thank and appreciate Dr. Charles Jacobs for all that he's done and continues to
Mm-hmm.
do. And the last thing that I'd like to appreciate him, as well as the likes of Dr. Corey Brooks, because I heard you mention him as well, is the fact that they're not leaving young people out of the equation because
Yeah.
they understand that sometimes these journeys take long, and it's not a question of that there's no I mentioned a couple of moments ago that there's some organizations that just stay in it for too long,
Yeah.
not because some of them do it just because they aren't really about meeting their end objectives. And sometimes it's about because it's a really, really long journey that's ahead. It's a marathon. And if you aren't in your being deliberate about moving the needle with where you aren't deliberate about training a generation that will take over from you, handing over the baton, then that's also a component of not really being serious about the task that's at hand. So
Right.
I also want to appreciate him for bringing young people in.
Absolutely. And it's funny, right before you said that, I was thinking all the people that I've listed, and then the two you listed just now, they are they're older. Now, Pastor Corey is probably the youngest of the people we listed: Charles Jacobs, Peggy Shapiro, Dr. Bob Woodson. But still, they're older. But the one thing that they all have in common is exactly that: is that they partner with younger people, and um, they you need the wisdom of the elders,
Absolutely.
and you need the energy of the younger
100%.
ones.
Yeah.
And to me, I think what what I lament personally is, there's a lot of people our age, right, that they might be doing good work or somewhat, but they're kind of doing it on their own. So we're stepping into we have energy and we have some knowledge of some stuff, But to be able to humble ourselves as young people and say, okay, but these people have been doing what I want to do. They've been doing it for 40 years, like literally an insane amount of time. We can't even fathom that, and 40 years, right? The children of Israel wandered the desert for 40 years. Like, these people have been doing work for as long as Moses was leading the children of Israel through the desert, for some of them. And there's a partnership that has to be there, because there is a wisdom that's needed that they have. But there's an energy that they don't. I mean, a lot of people, they're pretty energy packed, but there's something there that they need from the young people. So they partner very well. They're very good at bringing in young people, sharing their wisdom, but then also allowing the people they're working with to do their thing, and put their own thing on it. So
I
um,
think it's I think it's important to say that it doesn't mean what you're articulating. It doesn't mean that young people themselves aren't doing the work and
right,
can't do the
right,
work. They
absolutely,
are, they can, and there's many incredible young people that are doing it and that are out there.
yeah,
What we're highlighting is, to your point, the wisdom of young people being submitted to the journey that has already been traveled by our older parents, our ancestors, our role models. And so even if we're wanting to do something that's slightly different, here's me going, we, okay, how young am I? Still think I'm young. But even if we're
oh
wanting to
yeah,
do something that, if we're wanting to do something that's slightly different, King Solomon said that there is nothing new under the sun. There's already some way or some principles, even if it's not the exact science of what we may be
mm,
wanting to do, that's already been done. And so to be able to
mm,
seek that counsel and to seek that wisdom and to seek that mentorship and to remain under that counsel and that
yeah,
wisdom and that mentorship is what will ensure that we're able to be successful.
yeah,
Again, I'm tired of talking about her, but I just want to point out one thing for me in terms of just noting Candace's journey
yeah.
is that it was interesting, and maybe she just never was that, but at least it came across as it. I'll give it that.
Go ahead.
Was that there was a period of time where she seemed submitted to an authority, and I don't even know if people like to use that word anymore, but it's an important word. She seemed submitted to an authority over her life that she was able to be mentored by, and somebody that was going to speak to her, an
Hmm.
older person that was going to speak some sense, like when you veer off. And I dare to say that if we were to do a little bit of digging, that the willingness to be submitted, the willingness to continue to hear and
Mm,
to continue to act upon what's being told is lacking.
yeah,
So it's very important, the
absolutely.
submission. Mhm.
No, no, absolutely. I thought of, just recently I saw this movie. It's a newer one, Roman J. Israel Esquire. It's a movie. Denzel Washington plays a lawyer, an older
Mhm.
lawyer. I was, don't get distracted with the politics of the lawyer and stuff like that. The whole point is that he was an older man, older lawyer, a stalwart, like someone who would
Mhm.
pave the way for young
Mhm.
black lawyers. But he wasn't really known, and he just had gotten laid off, and he has just gotten fired. I mean, brilliant man. He plays a brilliant guy, photographic memory, all that kind of stuff, right? And um, there's two scenes. There's a scene where he goes into this young firm, a bunch of black lawyers, like humbling himself and asking for a job. And the lady who runs the firm, she's younger, but she's old enough to know who he is and what he's done.
Mhm.
And so she can't really give him a job, but she feels for him, and so they're having a conversation. And he's older, he's a little bit brash, and so, but she's not really taking anything to heart because she knows who this guy is. She knows what he's done. Her assistant, or her inferior, or subordinate, I should say, sitting behind her at his desk, he had no idea who this guy was. So then he starts to chime in the conversation and try and insult the guy and call him a freak and all that kind of stuff. And eventually, Denzel Washington's character, he walks out. He says, "Okay, thank you. I'll call these phone numbers you gave me. I appreciate it." And as he's walking out, the guy looks at him, and he says to his boss, "This guy's a freak." And she said, "You stand on his shoulders." And it was such a
Yeah.
it was the end of the scene. I was like, wow. Because even though she didn't agree with some of the things he was saying, she was like, you don't understand who just walked into our office right now.
Mhm.
And there's a
Mhm.
second scene where she invites him to be a guest speaker for her class. And Esperanza Spalding plays the ignorant student character, which is kind of fitting because from what she's posted. But anyway, I digress. And he's about to teach. and he sees two women standing up and men sitting down. Well, gentlemen, why don't you stand up and let the women take their seat? She takes such offense by that. She starts going at him to eventually she cusses at him, says F you to him in front of the whole class. So then the class erupts and they're like, whoa, whoa, whoa. And then he eventually just walks out. He doesn't teach the class. He just leaves. And again, and that was the end of that scene. He never revisits the class. She never comes back again. But that whole, like, we don't even know what we're missing. They don't even know who was about to give them this piece of wisdom. And she soiled it before he could even get started. And that was, they'll never know it, but that was, I mean, it was a scene, but it was like, that will forever be lost to them. They will never get whatever they were supposed to get, whatever blessing. She ruined it because she couldn't stand him telling two gentlemen to stand up and let her take their seat. She couldn't stand him being polite, and that was just a different generation. So screw this guy. And so just to say what you're saying, Olga, absolutely, is that we don't know what we're missing when we dismiss someone just because their style is a little bit different. They come from a different era. So, oh, they can be this, that, and the other. Or their communication style. Yeah, I get all that. I understand, right? But you're still, there's a blessing still that lies within them from their journey. And if you dismiss them, you just won't get it. You'll wander through life figuring out what to do. And little did you know that 78% of your questions would have been answered had you just, like you said, submitted yourself to this authority and learned from them. So that's what's sorely needed. And I think the generals in these different fights on these different fronts that we're talking about right now, they you know, they not only do they do the work, but they have the scars to prove it, and they have the wisdom from those scars that we can definitely learn from. So do you want to add anything else to that, Olga?
No, that was a great ending. They've got the scars from which we can learn from.
Yeah, they got the scars. Some scars we don't have to have. I mean, that's the
No,
thing. We really don't have to have certain scars.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So, our grandparents had 122 scars, so our parents could have 87, so we could have 40, maybe. I mean, that's the whole point, is that we can learn. So, so anyway, let's go to, okay. So now we've covered a couple of those things, and this kind of ties into it. I want to park here for just a moment before we close it. By the way, for those of you who are watching, if you just tuned in, this is the Institute for Black Solidarity with Israel. This is our weekly forum. I'm Joshua Washington. I'm joined by our lovely host, my lovely co-host, Olga Washington. And we do this every Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern. So if you're watching this and you've never heard of us before, and you like what we're saying and you like what we do and our content, go to ibsi.org, check out what we do, donate, become a legacy builder, give monthly, all that stuff. We would greatly appreciate it. And it helps us continue to do this amazing work. So recently, I think last week, there's an article that came out in our from our Substack that was written by me, called "Justice is a Divine Concept," and it touches on kind of what we're talking about now. You can go to ibsi.substack.com to check it out. But part of it is I pull from different sources, people that we've been following for a while, and just really talking about. You can read it for yourself, but I'm gonna just highlight a couple of different things, and that is. I kind of dealt with both the left side and the right side, but I was focused more on the right side this time because there's this concept, and I've been seeing it play out more and more, of, like we talked about Candace Owens, but she's not the only one. Charlie Kirk was on this right at the beginning of the war. These people who claim to be conservatives, who really are showing their true colors, meaning they're showing after all this time that their faith as self-professed Christians wasn't in God, but was in America, the Constitution, whatever it is, right? And those things are great things. I'm not saying those things. I'm a conservative myself. Like, I'm not saying, but what I'm saying is they put those things above God. And so as they're seeing things crumble, as the West is being dismantled, which we've talked about quite a bit here, they're losing their way. They don't know what to do. And so they're hitching their rides to whatever they feel like. That's why Tucker Carlson was praising Putin in Russia, and that's they're trying to find the next thing to hook onto, because their faith wasn't really in God in the first place. And so the article kind of unpacks that. And one of the things that it cites is so yeah, I talk about Tucker Carlson. Like I said, we go through a couple of different people, but It really does. It highlights the need for us to know where we stand. That's why, like, when Candace was first saying all that stuff about Israel, and then she got pushback, then she hid under this shell of, oh, I'm as a Christian, as a Christian, as a, I said, I've never heard you talk about your faith. Not, I mean, maybe a little bit, but not like this. Charlie Kirk did the same thing when they thought that Israel bombed a church in Gaza. Christians need to stand up. I was like, Charlie, when have you ever talked about the millions of Christians suffering in North Africa and middle, like in Middle East outside of Israel and in China? You've never talked about Christian persecution, but now you want to pull out your Christian, badge and your hat and say, "Oh, I'm a Christian." Um, that justice for them is a still in some ways a trend and a fad, like you said, a wave to be ridden rather than a divine concept of it doesn't matter how many people are standing up. It doesn't matter how many people on my side agree with me.
Mhm,
This is right and this is wrong
mhm,
based on something bigger than us,
mhm,
right? That's the whole thing. Um, so we're losing our way, and we're finding that more people than we thought, I think, are also lost because of where they've decided where they've decided to build their house, which foundation, right? It's all sand. I don't care if it's sand wrapped up in the Bill of Rights and our Revolutionary War and all that stuff, or it's based on the Marxism and communism. It's sand, right? That's the whole point. Um, so that's kind of what the article was touching on. Olga, did you have any other further thoughts about that as well?
No, it just, for me, reiterates what we've already touched upon a little bit, and that is the importance of being anchored, and also having the right people around you, the right people to mentor you, the right people that are going to hold you accountable, the right people who are going to continuously challenge you to remain humble, challenge you to um, reflect on the principles as to why you're doing what you're doing, so that you don't just become somebody who's fickle. I mean, at the end of the day, right, that's what you are. You're fickle. You move with the wind, and you'll say what's going to be said just because it happens to be in vogue at that time.
Mm,
There's no
yeah.
substance, I'm sorry,
Substance.
long
Yeah,
day, there's no substance to what you're doing and how you're doing it. Yes, sir.
absolutely. No, and absolutely. So there's something else too in that there has to be substance, like you said, and it can't be rooted in what you think should happen. I mean that
Absolutely.
doesn't matter what your
Absolutely.
politics are. It can't be based in emotion. It can't be based in what I think needs to be right, and that's self righteousness, and that always crumbles. Um, so absolutely, and so unfortunately, you all, the deeper we get into this war and everything, the more we will see people that we did not expect. Like, wow, really? I thought you just start to. I mean, it's just they try to make sense of it. Well, they've when the chip when crap wasn't hitting the fan, it was easy to stand with Israel and speak at rallies and I mean, I'm not going to call out people by name just all over the place, but there was another conservative influencer that was at a pro-Israel rally in LA a few years ago, and then 2020, after the war, 2021 was saying some anti-Israel stuff on her page, and she's been silent on October 7th. You know what I'm talking about?
I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, it's again because for some people the Israel thing is just another issue to kind of get support from conservatives. It's a grift, and that's and we hope that for those who have been following us for this long know that we try our best. We're not going to be perfect, but at Ipsy we sometimes will say things that might anger a lot of people who follow us, but if we feel that it's true and needs to be said, then we'll say it. It's not a this is not a game for us. And like you said earlier, Olga, our goal really is to put ourselves out of business, and we've said this before. I don't want Ipsy to have the same name. I've talked to my dad and I have talked about this. We've all talked about this. Our goal should not be the same when our kids are in their 20s and 30s. If Ipsy is to still exist, it'll be a different form. It'll probably have a different name, different mission, because what we've done now, what we're doing has spread and has become its own thing where we don't have to, it's bigger than us, and we can maybe facilitate in a different way, or
Mhm.
maybe step out of the advocacy space and just do commerce and contribute. I mean, that's our goal, and that continues to be our goal. Sorry, what were you going to say, Olga? Go ahead.
Well, I was gonna ask you a question. What would your advice be to people that are saying, "Okay, how do we know who's real? How do we know who's not a grifter?
Mm,
Especially when they come out of the gates, guns blazing, sound
yeah.
very eloquent, sound very knowledgeable, are very passionate,
Mm,
very active, very visible. How do people know? Because I'm assuming that there are
mm,
lots of people who
right.
have been following either different organizations or politicians or
Mm,
activists or even some of the individuals that you mentioned just now,
yeah.
and then couple of months, couple of years later, they just turn out not to
Yeah.
be the real deal. So
Yeah.
what tips, what advice would you have for people out there? And because 'cause we've
Yeah.
also gotta be accountable to ourselves, right?
Yeah.
How do people know that they can trust us? How do they know that
Sure.
they can trust you, myself, the Institute for Black Solidarity with Israel?
So I would say I think the answer to both your questions can be answered with one answer, which is one, there's patience. You can't just when someone pops up, they can't just be your savior. First of all, no one's your savior. Like
Yeah,
that. Let's just get
yeah.
that out of the way. No human being on this earth is your savior, right? If you're a
Mhm,
Christian, you know who your savior is. That's it. All right, that's it.
mhm,
Um, so that's the first thing is that it really sometimes it is a hard thing in that you might see someone like, for instance, in this, let's be very specific. You might see a black person who's not Jewish post a video in favor of Israel and saying great stuff. That's fantastic. You go, oh, that's great. I love that. I've never heard of this person before, so let me just wait and see what they do. Before I start heralding them, before me as an executive director invite them to our conference to speak to and have them on these big platforms and stages, and oh my gosh, this is here it is. Here is our, light and shining armor. Let's do some research. Let's see what they've said before. Do they have a track record? Wow, they've been writing and speaking about this for 12 years. Okay, well, that's consistent, right? They've been with Israel through the ups and downs. Okay, I can see that. That's cool. Do they have their own voice? Wow, they speak on other issues. So they seem to be just they speak what their convictions, right?
mhm,
So they might even say things that you don't agree with. Wow, okay, their views on abortion I don't agree with. Their views on whatever. But you know what? I respect that more. Someone told us that. I actually respect you guys more that you are very vocal about your other views because it tells me that you're not being controlled by anyone. Because
mhm,
why else would you say something that most of us would be mad at you for? This was a person who was opposed to us politically in every possible way except Israel. And she said, I actually respect you guys more that we
mhm,
oppose each other. Right. So there's that, there's longevity. And then, like I said, not putting someone as an idol as soon as they come onto the scene. Um, so that's and for us, for Ipsy, that's how you can trust us, is that you can look at the work we've done even before. If you look at, well, um my dad's Facebook isn't active anymore, but I would say if you look at some of his posts even in 2012, 2011, before Ipsy was founded, he was writing articles, he was speaking, he was at what do you call it, hearings when we lived in California. He went to Sacramento. I don't know if for people who are in California, remember the people were debating whether or not Ashkelon could be a sister city of Sacramento. My dad was right there. And then seeing, just look at the track record. Okay, look at what they've
mhm,
done, look at what they've spoken out on. You might not agree with everything that's being said, but again, the fact that we say things you don't agree with should actually make you maybe trust us a little bit more. Okay, they're not afraid to speak their convictions. So I know what I'm gonna get when I get them. Look at their track record, look at what they've done, and then look at the people. There's a proverb that says, "Let another man praise you and not yourself." Right? Look at what other people say about Ipsy. Look at what other Jewish partners of ours say about it. Look what people in the Black community across the country. Look at now we have Ipsy ambassadors, we have Ipsy pastors. Ask them how their experience has been in Ipsy, and
mhm,
we don't mind that. Do your due diligence, interrogate us. Look under every rock. That's fine. We want that, and we actually, again, would wish for everyone to do that whenever, like you said, someone pops up on the scene. Because
mhm,
what tends to happen, we talked about this before, especially with the Black person, someone who's Black or Black African, is that they say something pro Israel at some event one day, it gets captured on camera. Next thing you know, they're on a speaking tour all over the world. And so they're not really being poured into, but they're being used to say all this stuff. And then the moment that they are not sure about something, have a question about something or whatever, they get tossed aside. And then some of them wind up flipping and just completely going against Israel, and these Jewish people, these Jews are so mean to me, and da, da, da. And it happens on both sides. And I'm working on an
yeah,
article about this. The
yeah,
anti-Israel side, the pro-Israel side have people who exploit Black voices. The only difference is that the pro-Israel side has the truth on its side. It's just that, but there's still exploitation on both sides. And that's what that part of that exploitation comes from. Ooh, oh wow, Olga, you're a Black South African. Come talk about apartheid. Okay, I can, but there's no. Just apartheid. Yes, I can talk about that, but see, I grew up in South Africa, and I actually can talk about the relationship between Israel and no. Just talk about how Israel's not an apartheid state. Okay, Israel's not an apartheid state. ABC. Okay, thank you. Now go over there. Thank you. We'll call you when we need you again. Thank you, Olga. And that's not really conducive to a healthy relationship. And also, like I said, it blinds you because you bring someone on your team based on that. And you don't even know if they really stand with you in the first place. They might just be on a wave. They like this attention they're getting, so they just say things that people will like them
Yeah,
for. Go ahead, Olga.
yeah. Don't mean to interrupt you, but I do need to. My laptop's about to die,
Oh,
so
yeah.
I'm literally just gonna hop off for a second and then I'll come back, okay?
No, no problem. No problem. We are a little bit over time. It's 9 o'clock now. So as soon as Olga comes back, I'm just gonna say the salutation or the what do you call it? Not sayonara, the goodbyes. But I do want to say that that is one way. And I'm glad she asked that question. That you can trust IPSI and even verify. Look at what we've done. Look at what we've said. Look at what we've. There are things actually, even, and this is something else that you can even look to. There are things that we have said, that our CEO has said, that caught a lot of fire in a negative way. That now years later, people are coming around to say, you know what? I think he was right about that. I see you, Olga. You can go ahead and come back on if someone can let Olga back on. So that is another thing, is that there are things that have been said by IPSI, by our CEO especially, that was roundly condemned by a lot of people in the Israel advocacy space and beyond, that now people are looking back on and going, oh my gosh, he was absolutely right. We talk about, I mean, I just remember this in 2014. Some people wrote a hit piece on our CEO because of his comments about George Soros. Oh, how dare he! It's anti-Semitic. And unfortunately, some people in the Israel advocacy space were also right on there. We can't work with people like that. Now, no one seems to care to talk crap about George Soros. Like because he wasn't talking about him because he was Jewish. It's because of what he's funding. So all the Black Lives Matter stuff you were seeing all over the place. He's one of the major funders. It wasn't a conspiracy. But our CEO had the conviction to say, this is wrong. I don't care that he's Jewish. It's wrong. This is wrong. I don't care that they're Black. It's wrong. And I'll take the backlash, whatever. You guys will see later. And 4, 5, 6 years down the line, they go, oh, okay, we get it. Those are the people I think that can be better trusted than just someone who pops up out of nowhere and says, I'm Israel high and waves a flag. Like, just be careful about that. Just be careful. All right, we can go on for a long time. This is feeling great, but I do want to sign off. Someone just asked earlier, how can homelessness and crime be reduced in Oakland, San Francisco? One, I would say there are people who are screaming the solution. No one's listening to them.
Mhm.
But one of the ways, especially in Oakland, it's a very simple thing. People like to act like it's a very complicated. It's not. More cops mean less crime. You deal harshly with the bad cops, but you allow the cops to flourish. You don't cut your police force. The homicide rate was already bad in Oakland before the police force was cut. And then they defunded the police. And now I just saw Oakland is starting this whole initiative on community policing. Like, you guys you're just inching closer and closer to what was already there. Just fund your police department again and like recruit and train and do what you're already doing, because the situation has gotten like way worse since you defunded the police. And now you're trying to figure out other things. You don't have to figure out the solution was there already. Law enforcement. Put the criminals in jail. When someone commits a crime, they need to go to jail. In San Francisco, you can walk into a store and steal stuff up to, I think it's like, as long as it's under $900, you can there are security cameras of people just waltzing in and just grabbing, whether it's groceries, Apple products, and just walking out. And the managers and the employees are kind of like, I don't get paid enough for this. I know the cops aren't going to come. I mean, whatever. Like, that's okay. Put more cops on the street. Arrest the people who are doing that. Take that stupid law off the books. Crime's going down. The stats show that less crimes are committed when just from a police car simply being parked on a corner somewhere. That's it. Criminals will walk up and go, actually, no, I'm not trying to get into a firefight with the police officers. I'm not trying to do it. So forget it. Okay, so that's what it is. Don't defund the police and say, oh my gosh, what do we do? You did this, so you know how to undo it. So anyway. So that's it. I mean, but again, people in the community are screaming this stuff. No one's listening to them. We act like we don't know what the answer is, and it's literally right in front of our faces. Okay. So thank you all for coming again. This is it's Israel's weekly forum. Again, visit our website, ibsi.org. Become a legacy builder. If you like this segment, please donate to IPSI. Set up a monthly amount that you can give. It greatly helps us. We have a lot of events coming up. Not all of them. Some of them we're giving of our time and ourselves because of the nature of it. So your donations help us to just be able to travel there, travel back, and not be broke when we get home. I mean, that's really a lot of events we're doing are essentially us just coming out of pocket to make sure that this happens. So your donations help make it happen. Tune in next week. Olga, do you have any final thoughts before we close out?
I don't, other than the fact that people need to go on our Substack, on the website, sign up to also be a supporter of the African Jewish Alliance. I really do believe that it's something that's going to be transformational,
Yes.
in the greatest sense of the word.
Absolutely, y'all. All right. Well, that's it, y'all. Thank you so much again. Thank you, Olga, for joining us. Thank you, Pastor Matrilla Hall down there in Georgia. We will come see you soon, ma'am. Thank you for supporting us, and thank you all for hopping on. Thank you so much, Ellen. You guys take care. We'll be back here next week on Monday, 8 p.m. Eastern time. I'll be tuning in to you from South Africa. I'm really excited. Olga will be with me again too. We're excited to see you guys. You guys have a great night.